Welcome to Office 365 Accessibility, presented by Bailey Cucaro from Microsoft. Bailey is a customer success trainer for Microsoft stores working remotely from Columbus, Ohio since 2016. Her role is focused on training end users on how to use Microsoft products such as Microsoft Teams, Power Platform, and Office 365. Alex Kahn will be supporting Bailey during her presentation. The session will begin shortly. Please ask your questions in the Q&A panel. If you require or want to use the built-in caption feature, please turn it on by going to the Closed Captions button in the video controls. After the completion of the conference, each recording will be captioned using ADA standards to ensure that captions are appropriate and ADA compliant.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to today's session. Today, we're going over Microsoft 365 Accessibility for Government, creating accessible content level 100. We are recording this training, so it will be available on demand for up to 180 days. If you wanted to join anonymously, you can. You just log out and log back in using the web browser. Okay. I do have some controls that I do want to point out, though we did end up showing how to add captions for those who wanted to see where they're located on the screen. I have a picture on screen. Okay. So, just so you are aware, today's session, your microphone is automatically muted and your camera won't be in use. You don't have to worry about those two things. Just make sure audio is turned up. I did already have an introduction, but just a reminder, my name is Bailey. I am a customer success trainer with Microsoft, and I have here to support me, Alex, in the Q&A chat. So with that, let's go over what I'm covering today. So we'll start first with getting started with Windows. So we'll go over accessibility features that you can find in the Windows 10 operating system. Then we'll go over accessibility in Microsoft 365. So I'll show you features you can find inside of Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. Then I'll show you how you can find accessibility features inside of Teams, the application. At the end, we'll have some closing information and resources you can check out after the event. So with that, I'm going to just have a brief slideshow talking about accessibility and Microsoft. Before we begin learning how to create accessible content, let's talk a little bit about accessibility, disability, and the power in creating inclusive experiences for everyone. Over 1 billion people live with disabilities. The cost of failing to create accessible experiences, content, and products is exclusion. When our work environment, the content we create, and the experiences we build are not accessible, our audience, impact, and potential for innovation shrink. Exclusion benefits no one. The challenges are real and the opportunity is large. Let's look at how we think about disability. For most of the 20th century, disability was defined as the result of an individual's condition. The problem was with the person. But disability happens at the points of interaction between a person and their environment. Physical, cognitive, and social exclusion are the result of a mismatch between what a person wants to achieve and an environment that does not support it. This definition, first adopted by the World Health Organization, presents a solvable design, business, and social problem. It's a problem we've taken on at Microsoft because it stands directly between us and our ability to achieve our mission. Not all disabilities are immediately apparent. In fact, 70% of disabilities are invisible to the eye and can be permanent, temporary, or situational. This likely affects someone you work with and almost certainly the customers and public you serve. Accessibility is a benefit for everyone. So we have broken down how we plan to invest in accessibility. So in Vision, we are going to make sure your device is easier to see or use without a screen. For hearing, we're going to make your device easier to hear or use without sound. And mobility, make your device easier to use if you have limited reach or strength. For neurodiversity, we have ways to make it easier to focus and get things done with Windows. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start our live demo. So I'm right now on a laptop. It's running Windows 10, the operating system. So we're going to start first by accessing your ease of access settings that are just on your computer already. So to get to your settings, there are a few ways. You can go first to your start menu, and there is a settings button right above your power button. Okay, this will open the settings menu, and from here you can access the ease of access settings. Another quick way to get there is if you go to the search bar at the bottom of the screen, you can just type in ease of access, and it will offer you the option to open the window directly. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what options are available in these ease of access settings. Here on the left-hand pane is our navigation, and you can see we have settings split up into 3 categories. We have vision, hearing, and also interaction. Okay, so we'll start first in highlighting the vision area. So in display, you'll find options to make your text bigger on display. You can also, though, make everything bigger. So icons, pictures, you can zoom in your screen higher from make everything bigger. You also have your brightness settings, and there's also settings for animations inside of Windows. So for instance, if you don't like the transparency behind panels, you could turn that off. Now, one section I think everyone will find helpful is the mouse pointer area. This is where you can change the look of your mouse cursor. So you can change the size with this slider right here. You can also change the color. You can either choose white, black. There is an option to have it just invert whatever color is behind the mouse, or you can just choose a different bright color, which is the one I normally have. Okay. There is an option to choose a custom color if you don't like the suggested ones. Now, the next section, text cursor. Whenever you're typing in a box or in a document, this will allow you to turn on visual indicators for where your text cursor currently is on the page. Okay, so to turn that on, there is a slide right here for on and off, and you can adjust how those visual indicators look. Okay, so you can choose a bright color, and you can also adjust the size. There's also an area to adjust the literal thickness of your cursor. So if you want it to be very obvious on screen, bumping this up, it'll make it more obvious. Okay. Now, the next section is magnifier. This is a common tool people think of when they consider accessibility settings. So magnifier does allow us to zoom in on our screen, and there's a lot of customization here. So let's go ahead and first note that to turn on magnifier, we do have an on-off switch, but we also have a shortcut key. So we can press the Windows logo key and the plus sign to quickly turn on magnifier, or to turn it back off, press Windows key and escape. Okay. So I'll go ahead and turn it on. This is a shortcut. And right now I'm actually on the lens version of magnifier. So right now it's at 100%, so I'm not zoomed in at all. And let's keep taking a look here. If I go down, I can see there's the option to change my current zoom level. So zoom in 200%, zoom out. Notice when I turn on magnifier, it did open up a toolbar that does allow me to quickly adjust that zoom in and zoom out. Okay. We also can choose how much the increment of change between those zoom levels is. So right now the default's 100, but if I only want it to bump up or down by 50%, I can adjust that. Okay. So now I'm zooming in just 50% at a time. below this area, there are some settings for if you would like to have magnifier on as soon as the computer's turned on. So it's just ready to go at the sign-in screen, or if you wanted to just start right after you sign into your account. Okay. Now let's check out the different views that we have. I mentioned I'm on the lens view, which gives me a window that tracks my mouse, and then whatever is beneath my mouse will be what's zoomed in. I can change the size of this window with these sliders here. Okay. Lens, though, is not the only way you can use magnifier. You can also choose docked. Docked will put a window automatically up at the top of your screen, but it's still tracking where my mouse is. So wherever my mouse is, it'll show the zoomed in area above my screen. So if I zoom in a bit, so now we're at 200%, you can see how it has a much closer view up top. Okay. And then the last way you could use this is just the full screen. Full screen does have you zoom in the entire screen. So the only way you can navigate this way is by moving your mouse up and down to the edges of the screen. Okay. But it does give you the most space for the zoomed in view. Okay, I'm going to change it back to lens for now. I like using this. There is one last setting I want to pull up, which is reading. This is actually an option to set up shortcuts for magnifier. It does have the ability to read text for you as well. You'll notice that on the magnifier toolbar, there is a little arrow here with a speech icon next to it. It says read from here. If you click on that and then click any text on your screen, the magnifier will start reading it using the narrator voice. Okay. And it gives you a visual indicator and everything. So you can choose what your modifier key is for those shortcuts in this area. So that pretty much covers our magnifier section, but if we did have any questions about that, just let us know. I'm going to go ahead and exit magnifier for now. So the next area, color filters. So we do have the option to filter the colors on screen. You do need to turn it on first. And then once it's on, you can check out what options we have. We have some basic color filters like inverted, grayscale, and grayscale inverted. But we also have some really awesome ones for color blindness. So we have for the green week, the red week, and the trinopia, which I hope I said right. Yeah, blue, yellow. So either of these options you can turn on just by clicking on them and it will automatically change. So you can already see it on my screen. Just go ahead and turn that off. Now we do have one more option for changing the look of windows in the high contrast area. This is going to be probably for very specific instances. This allows you to basically create the highest contrast on your screen as possible, and it's customizable, so you can choose what colors represent for each thing. I do like to show it because I think it's easier if you see. Let me go ahead and turn that on. There we go. I know my screen does go dark for a second, but now it should be seen again. My background is black, the window is black, and it's just trying to basically minimize and highly contrast everything. But notice that it is customizable, so I can click here and choose different colors to represent different parts. So maybe text I can change, hyperlinks, buttons, selected text, all of it I can change. Okay. There's also already created themes. So if you don't want to have to worry about customizing one, you could check out the pre-made ones that are already there. Okay. So that is the high contrast. I'm going to turn it off, so my screen's going to go dark again as it goes back to the original settings. All right, so the last area in Vision is Narrator, another tool that I think is often thought of when we talk about accessibility in technology. Narrator is a tool that will allow us to have text on screen read aloud to us. So for this, you can turn it on directly with this slider. Okay. There is also a shortcut for narrator. And you just have to press the Windows logo key, Control, and Enter to turn it on or to turn it off. Okay. We also have startup options like we did for Magnifier, so you can have narrator start as soon as your computer turns on or as soon as you log into your account. We have some personalization for narrator. So if you wanted to change the type of voice for narrator, we have some options here. We can also add voices. We have an option to change the speed of the voice, the pitch, and also the volume. Okay. Below that, there is options for deciding where you hear that narrator's voice. So if you have like a headset or speakers you want to attach it to, you can choose from here. And then underneath of this area, we're going to find a lot of different potential settings for narrator. First, starting with change what I hear when reading and interacting. So this first one here is to change the level of detail that narrator provides about text and controls. And I have 5 different levels there. We can also change how capitalized text is read. So if you don't want it read aloud, you could have it not announce that, or you could have it indicate with an increased pitch or have it say cap. We also have other options too. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go into deep detail of each option, but we have a lot of things for deciding what particulars we want narrator to read aloud to us. So we don't have to have it read every character necessarily, or if we wanted to have every letter read as we type, we do have that. Now, I do want to point out a few other things like the option for providing details about buttons and other controls. So you can choose if you want that before or after. And then below, there are going to be keyboard settings for things like your narrator key. So your narrator key will be used to have shortcut commands. So the default is you can have caps lock or insert, or you could have it have both acceptable keys. And then down here, the narrator cursor, you have some options. This is where narrator focuses on your screen. If you want to have it visible, that's on by default, but you can also have it hide the cursor if you'd rather just have it read aloud and you don't need that visual. Okay. You can also choose things like move my cursor with the narrator cursor. So my mouse would move along with the narrator as it read. Right now, I also have it synced to watch my cursor for where it should start to read. And also we have read and interact with the screen using the mouse. Okay. If you do want to use Braille, we actually do have the operating system ready to use that kind of software, but it is not already installed. So you would have to come here and install it to have that work. And it does require a device that is attached to your computer. So you do already have to have the device, but it does make it very easy to start using it if you have these. Okay. And then the very last area is more about managing your data and services. So as far as giving data to Microsoft. So you can check that out here. That about wraps up the vision area. Were there any questions that the audience wanted me to address?
Hi, Bailey. This is Jonathan. We do have a question on there. Somebody was asking if you could demonstrate the voice of narrator so that they can hear what it sounds like when you're using it.
For narrator, yes. Let's go ahead then.
And we are not hearing it, so I don't know if anything's being narrated yet, but it might be that system audio needs to be turned on.
Okay, 1 second. I must not have let it hear my computer sound. So, okay, let me go ahead and check my share option again. There it is. Okay, now it should work.
Narrator dialog. OK. Button. Alt+O. Heads up. Narrator keyboard changes. We've updated the narrator keyboard layout so it more closely matches the experience you may have had with other screen readers. If you want narrator to tell you what commands are associated with the keys you're pressing, you can turn on input learning by pressing caps lock +1. To turn it off, press caps lock +1 twice. To exiting narrator.
Okay. So I did actually just take a glance while narrator was reading there to the chat, and I did see that someone mentioned that they also wanted to show how magnifier works using the voice. So I'm going to go ahead and just show that real quick. Let's go back to magnifier. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And then you just have to utilize this specific button, the read from here button that is on the magnifier toolbar. Okay, looks like a mouse cursor with a speaker button next to it. And I can use this button to just click on text that I see. So I'll have it read, for instance, this paragraph right here.
Use magnifier to zoom in on parts of your display. Magnifier can run in full screen, in a separate window, or as a lens that follows your mouse pointer around the screen. Turn on mag.
There we go. Sorry, I tried to pause it. All right. So that is how the magnifier works. Notice that it does sound and act very, very similar to the narrator. So thank you for the question. I'm going to take that as we can queue into the hearing section now.
If we have no more questions, I know that one that does come up, Bailey, that I'll mention here frequently is, can you change the voices on assistive technologies like screen readers? Is that something you can do with narrator or the magnifier?
Yeah, that is actually right in the narrator section. There is a personalized narrator's voice area where you can choose a specific voice. And then we also have options for changing the speed, pitch, and volume.
That's great. Thank you. I think that's all we have for now, question-wise.
Okay. Now let's go into the hearing area. So first, audio. This is where you can quickly change your device's volume. But also the option to turn on mono audio is here as well. So mono audio, if you weren't aware, just combines the left and right audio channels into one channel. Okay. There is an option here for show audio alerts visually. So if you've been on a Windows operating system before, you may have noticed that sometimes notifications are just a sound on the device. If you want to have sound notifications also be visually indicative, you can choose to turn that on here with options like flash the title bar of an active window, flash the active window, or just flash the entire screen. Now that's the audio area. There is a closed caption section here. Now this is all for editing how captions are displayed in Windows. So this is not to turn on captions automatically for things. It's simply just deciding how captions, when available, how they will look. Now we can change things like the font. I can change the color of the text, the text transparency, size. I also can change the caption background. So if you want to have a background behind the text, you can also choose to make it totally translucent if you don't want a background behind the text. Okay. Now, we also at the very bottom have dim window content. So add a text background to improve contrast and make text easier to read. This is just, again, going to dim the entire content of the window to make your subtitles stand out more. Okay. So a lot of customizability there. That is the entire hearing section for Windows. So I am going to check just to see if there were any questions about these two areas. If not, we can move into interaction.
Don't see any more questions in there, so I think we're good for now.
Okay. So first in interaction, we have the speech area. You can have your computer use the microphone to listen and type what you say. So diction. We can use this in any place on our device that will let us type. So if I can place my cursor there to type, I can use dictate. To start the dictate tool, you use the Windows key and H button. And it's going to start listening immediately. And if you can see on screen, it does start typing what I'm saying right in the box. Okay. Now, obviously, that's not very helpful in my search settings box, but I think it demonstrates the point. It can type wherever I need it to, and I can just speak aloud what I would like it to type. This toolbar can stay up here for your diction. So if I want to start using it again, I can just click the microphone button. If I close it, I can also just bring it back again with that shortcut, the Windows key H. So the next section under speech is dictate text and control your device using only your voice. So this is not just to type what your device hears. This will actually recognize commands that you give and have actions from your device. So you can literally control it using your voice. So speech recognition right now is only available in English, French, German, Japanese, Mandarin, and Spanish. Okay? And it does usually require a bit of practice with it. It takes time to learn while you using it. So I also did see a question pop up in the chat, caught my eye, about where can these settings be found again for Windows. They can be found in your just general settings under ease of access. To get to those, the easiest way I would say is clicking your start menu. Looking right above your power button, there is a gear icon that is settings. That'll open up the general settings window. And there you should see a button or an area that is labeled ease of access. And that is the button that we want. It will take us to these settings. Okay. So we just finished this speech area. I'm going to move into your keyboard area for interaction. So we have a few things on here. If you have a device that does not have a physical keyboard, you can actually turn on this on-screen keyboard, which can then be used with your mouse cursor. Okay. We also have some possibly familiar tools that you've seen, such as sticky keys in here. So sticky keys do allow you to press Shift and have combinations pressed at once without having to hold the keys down. You can turn this on by pressing Shift 5 times or turning it on from here. Below that is toggle keys. I have this one on right now. I find this so helpful. Play a sound whenever you press caps lock, nums lock, or scroll lock. I'm a bit of a clumsy typer, and so I frequently accidentally press caps lock. Hearing that sound lets me know, oh, I pressed caps lock again. So, love that one. Underneath toggle keys, we have filter keys. This will ignore brief or repeated keystrokes and change keyboard repeat rates. Okay, so that's just on or off right there. You can you can change how keyboard shortcuts work. Underline the access keys when available. Okay. There is also here a shortcut for print screen. If you have the print screen button on your keyboard, you can create it to be a shortcut for the program screen snipping. It makes it very easy to take a screenshot of your screen. And this very last area is settings for these keys to show a warning and to make a sound when they are turned on or off. Those should be on by default, but if you wanted to change that, you can come here to change it. So that covers our keyboard section. I'm going into the mouse area now. So under interaction for mouse, we only have one setting, which is the option to turn on mouse keys, which will use the numeric to move the mouse pointer. So essentially the numpad. Then Our last area in interaction is eye control, something that's actually super cool. This does require you to have a device that can track your eyes connected to the computer, which you can find those out there. They're pretty cool. One's called Tobii Eye Tracker. The device, though, once it's hooked up, you can use these settings to help set up the eye tracking to control your device with sight. And then we do have a link here just for more info. Okay. All right. Were there any questions about any of the areas I went over in ease of access? Because we are wrapping up the Windows 10 portion.
I don't see any in there now, but we will pause just for a few moments because I know there's a slight delay between when this goes out to people for call for questions. So if anybody has any questions for Bailey, please go ahead and submit them in the Q&A panel and she can address those now. But Bailey, this looks great. Thank you for demonstrating this.
Oh, of course.
Pause for a few more seconds here. All right, I don't see anything coming through, so if you want to carry on, I'll certainly let you know if something comes up in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so we're going to close the ease of access window now because we're moving into now our Microsoft Office applications and how we can make sure the content that we create is going to be accessible to everybody. So to start with, let's go to one that I think we're all probably familiar with, Microsoft Word. So Microsoft Word, when you first open it, we have here the option to immediately open up a blank document. Okay. I also have here options for the program. And this is where I'm going to start. Every program that I'm going to open here, you'll notice will have this same opening stage. And they'll all have at this bottom left-hand corner that options button. So clicking that, I can look through all the general Word options, but you'll notice there is an ease of access section specific to Word. Okay. Now, I will mention that I'll open the options for every program, and you'll see that a lot of them have truly the same options. There's going to be one or two settings that are unique to the program, and I'll point those out. So first, though, every Office program will have the accessibility checker available. And what that does is it helps you find and fix content in your document that might make it harder for people with disabilities to consume. Okay, you can find it under the review check accessibility, and I will show that here in just a little bit. Now, this setting is having it turn on the checker to run while I work. Okay. Now, we have another setting for feedback options. So if I would like to have feedback with sound, so basically when I click on things, I would get a feedback sound. I could turn that on here. And I can also choose the sound scheme as well. Below the feedback options, we have application display options. So this I also know is in every application. There are screen tips that can display on your different tools in the ribbon. So if I close that and I hover over tools, you'll see a little box will appear with some text giving you some insight in what that tool is, what you use it for, and if it has a shortcut, it'll also tell you what the keyboard shortcut is. Okay, so those are the screen tips. Let me open back up the options though. Okay. If you wanted to have the screen tips off, this is where you could turn off such things or adjust maybe how much information you want in the screen tips. Now, this area, automatic alternate text, this one is not already on by default. And so I highly recommend that you take a chance to come in and turn this on. Automatic text, alternate text will allow Word to generate a description for any pictures that you insert into the document. Okay, and that'll just make it more accessible for anyone with vision impairments. And you can still go in and edit this text yourself. And I would encourage that you still do that. The generator can be much quicker, but sometimes it's not going to be perfect in its description. So it's good to double check it, but that can save you a ton of time so you're not having to write in a perfect description for every image you pull in. Now, the last option, document display options. This is specific to Word. Word has headers in your styles that have this functionality to collapse text underneath of them. And if you open a document that had the headers already closed, then you might not realize that there is text underneath of it. This option is just letting Word know that when I have a document with headings, just expand them all as soon as I open it. Okay, so these are all of our settings for Word and ease of access. I'm going to go ahead and close this window for now. And let's talk a bit more about actually what sort of things we should keep in mind when we're creating documents. So there's some basic rules that you should keep in mind for any content. One thing is your font styles. This can be really important, and you should try to choose readable font styles and pay attention to things like color contrast, size, fluency, and visual crowding. And when in doubt, Calibri or Sitka are great choices. Okay. We also encourage using things like bullet points and numbering to create more accessible lists. And when you use hyperlinks, making sure to add text to display and not just leaving that raw link there. Okay. Then the last thing we've already touched on a bit, which is just when you bring in images and pictures to your documents, it is super important to make sure there is some sort of image description for it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how in Word you can go and open a template that is already built with accessibility in mind. So if you weren't aware, going back to this home area, you can check out templates in the right corner here. You have to click that, and then it'll open up a search bar for you to search for templates. Now, you can, of course, search for a resume if you're looking for a resume or maybe a calendar. One thing you can also check for, though, is accessibility. So if I type in accessibility, we do mark templates that were made with accessibility in mind in the description for them. So I just typed in accessibility. It offered me this modern chronological resume. And I can see here in the description, it mentions that follow a professional chronological resume format using this accessible modern resume template. Okay. Let's go ahead and create that. Okay. So some things we'll go ahead and notice is we do have some bullet points here, like it recommended. We have easy readable fonts, Calibri. We have nice contrast as well. Okay. So there are some other things that I want to show you. So first, let's check out the accessibility checker I mentioned. And so I'm going to go ahead and add just another page to this document. And I'm also going to insert just an image real quick. Okay, so to insert an image, I won't go over, but let's just have one. So I've placed an image in the document. Once the image is there, I did have the accessible text automatically generated on. So I should be able to, from the picture format options, there is a button that says alternate text, or I can choose to right click on the image and then choose edit alternate text. Both go to the same place, and it'll open up a panel for that alternate text where I can type in my details. So it looks like it didn't write a generated one for me, so it's a good thing I double checked. Let's go ahead and write a brief description. 2 kittens. Oh, I should get more description. 2 striped kittens play fighting. I'm going to type it a little bit better. There we go. So that's all I need to do to make sure that this image is going to have some sort of description for it. This screen reader, as it goes through the document, will read the text that I placed here. Okay, and all I have to do now is just close it. It's good. All right, so far I do see that there are some questions actually, so let me pause for a second. I see someone ask, can all of these features be accessed via keyboard shortcuts? I'm a little unsure of which specific features we're talking about, but there are a lot of keyboard shortcuts that are available. If you're talking about just tools inside of the Office programs, you can hover over any tool, and if it has any shortcut, it'll tell you what that keyboard shortcut is. So bold, we probably know this one, but you can see it says here it's Control+B for that keyboard shortcut. So if you're talking about something else, let me know. Give me a little bit more clarity and I will certainly come back to that. Somebody else asked, can Office 365 save accessible PDF files as well? You can save files as PDFs. The checking for the accessibility is going to come before you save it as a PDF, but you can absolutely save as a PDF though. So if I go to File and then Save As, you can choose the place and then here, PDF. It's just one of the file type options. And then someone else asked, is there a best practice for description length? I do think it recommends also inside the panel, but generally a sentence or two is fine. Just something that it's kind of hard. It really just depends on the picture, I would say. But I would say 1 to 2 sentences. You don't want to put probably more than that. And then let's see. Are these features in Office products available in both the web and desktop version? That's a great question. Because you're right, we do have Word, PowerPoint, and all of these programs available online from a web browser. And these tools, the accessibility checker, and then obviously the suggestions for how you create the content are going to be available in both the web and desktop versions. I think actually there shouldn't really be any differences now between this Word on my desktop and the Word online. Okay. And then, is there a way to make accessible forms? I guess if it depends. If you mean making a form inside of Word, I certainly think you could make an accessible form on here. I guess I would need to know what kind of form you were trying to make. There's also a literal Microsoft Forms program that's web only. It doesn't have a desktop app. But for the forms, I don't think it has a built-in accessibility checker like Word, PowerPoint, and Excel do. So that's something that I would have to maybe look into a bit more. Oh, okay, they did clarify a fillable form in Word. So yes, though that would be a little bit harder for me to demonstrate live. You would probably want to utilize either something like tables, because you can, and we actually do recommend that if you are providing information, that sometimes tables can help keep that information more organized. You do want to make sure though with tables that you are adding in headers to give context for what this table is, why it's on the document. You also want to make sure you keep the banded rows or columns, at least one of the two. It makes it easier to go through the information on a table. Okay, and then you do always want to just keep in mind the regular rules like font choice and color contrast always. So there are ways to make forms on Word. So I would start probably with maybe a template to build off of and go from there. So something like this looks like more like a form. So here they have built-in spaces for you. It really just kind of depends on what kind of form you want to make, I would say. So hopefully that helps. All right, so I think I got through all the questions. I'm gonna go ahead and close that one.
Hi, Bailey. This is Jonathan. You had one more in here that says, is there a way to check for inclusive language in Word 365?
I love that question. So I don't think there is a specific place. I want to say that the accessibility checker itself should be keeping an eye out for inclusive language as well, but I'm not positive. There's not a specific tool that I have for just inclusive language. I do know, though, that if you use the PowerPoint Coach does look out for inclusive language. That's the only case that I know that they specifically call that out. So somebody said, I don't know specifically how to make an accessible fillable Word form, but I have used them, so it is possible. Okay, so excellent. Thank you, Allison. I would say that to make an accessible form, I would check out some resources on our support site and I actually do have some resources at the end of the session as well about creating Word documents. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to go through creating a form specifically right now, but there are resources for it. So, good question. Now, I think the next thing we want to do, we went over tables already. Okay, so I actually was going to just show one more thing in Word, which is something I mentioned before. The styles, there are styles that have extra functionalities like headings. So just to kind of demonstrate that really quick, I typed hello, and I'm going to mark it for this header 1 style. Okay. I type below it now. I typed a sentence, just this text is below. And now you'll notice that when I hover over the word hello that I had changed into a header, I have that little blue arrow that appeared. That is clickable. It allows me to collapse the text that's underneath hello underneath. So it's hidden away now. So that is the header style that I was mentioning. This is helpful as an accessibility tool because it breaks up your document into sections to make it easier to navigate through. So I highly encourage, if you haven't tried using the headings before, they are very nice. So I'm going to move into PowerPoint now and close Word. If you had any more questions specifically about Word, I'm going to hold just to see. This is the time to ask. Okay, so I didn't see anything come through, but if I see something else, I'll address it. For now, though, let's open up PowerPoint. So as you can see, very similar looking to the Word, but we're going to open options first. Okay, and check out what's available in these ease of access settings. So here, the first thing is still turning on the accessibility checker. So that's going to be in all the programs. There's the feedback options. There are the application display options for the screen tip styles. So with the shortcut text, if you don't want those in PowerPoint, turn it off. And then there is automatic alternate text. And so this is the one that allows the program to try and automatically describe images you bring in. So these are all the options that are in the ease of access panel for PowerPoint. So we can go ahead and close this. Okay. Close this panel too. And I'm going to go back to the file area because I do want to also point out that just like we had for Word, for PowerPoint, we also have templates, though they are called themes here. If you open up the More Themes, you can choose to search for accessible PowerPoints. You guys hear my caps lock button? Accessible, there we go. All right. So all of these should have in the description that they are accessible. I'm going to click on this one to take a preview here, and I can see right there in the bottom text about it being a more accessible presentation. So I'll go ahead and create that. So for PowerPoint, we've already discussed the big things you want to keep in mind as far as creating content. High contrast text, readable fonts, using bullet points. But there are some things that will come up that are more specific to PowerPoint you want to consider to make sure it's accessible. Okay, so one of the big things is you want to ensure that you're using larger font sizes, okay, because these are meant to be mostly visual, not a ton of text. So keep that in mind. We recommend like 18 plus for the text size. We recommend using sans serif fonts. And keeping an eye that there's plenty of sufficient white space on the slides. Okay. We also recommend that you don't rely simply on color as a means of conveying information. So for example, if you are color coding to represent data, try also using shapes and alternate text to relay that information. Okay. We also have built-in slide designs. So whenever you start adding in new slides, choosing from these pre-built ones is recommended, as these are already laid out in a reading order that should make sense for screen readers. Okay. Now, speaking of reading order, that is something that can come up pretty often in PowerPoints. You can check this in your accessibility checker from the view area. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. It's actually the review area. So under the review section, there is your check accessibility button. We can click it to open the panel, and it's actually got some warnings for me specifically on reading order. So notice it says warnings. I don't know if you saw before, but it had previously also indicated errors. There is a difference between warnings and errors. Errors are something that need to be fixed. It is something that is not reading as accessible. Warnings are something that it just wants you to double check. So in this case, it wants me to double check these specific slides, and I can click them for PowerPoint to zoom me straight to that specific slide. And it's asking me to just check the reading order. Okay, so to confirm the reading order, I actually click on a drop-down menu here where it will list recommended actions, and then I can choose verify object order. From here, it lists all the elements it sees on screen in the order that will be read. So first it will read this picture, then it will read the title, then it's going to read this text, and then it'll read this picture. Okay, so if that order makes sense, I can close this and continue on to the next slide. If it's not in the order I intended for it to be read, then I can rearrange these into an order that does make sense. So for example, if I think the pictures should be read both at the beginning, I'll have it read this first picture and then the second picture by just clicking and dragging to reorder them. You can also use these arrow keys to reorder by just clicking up or down. Now, once it is in the order I'd like, I still just close the panel and I can move into the next slide. The warnings will stay there, so you can still go back and change them. Okay, so I would just go through each of these slides and confirm that they are in the order that they should be. Now, there is one other big thing that can happen in PowerPoints, where if you are showcasing a video file, something you want to consider is if that's going to be accessible. Now, if it's a link to a YouTube video, that should have already built-in auto captioning available, so that's probably fine. But if it's a video that you yourself recorded and you want to put it into a PowerPoint slideshow, you can and you should manually put in a subtitle file so those who need the captions will have them available, because otherwise they won't be able to hear the video. So let's quickly show how to do that. You can insert a video right here from the Insert tab and then in the Media section. Okay. I can choose from this device, from stock videos or online. For this example, I'm choosing one that's on my device. And I have a video here. It's very short that I just recorded of me speaking with no video. So it looks just like this black screen, but that's okay. I do have a subtitle file that I also made to go with the audio that I speak. So if I just leave this as it is and play it.
Hi, my name is Bailey Hucaro. I'm just making a quick video recording.
So that's my example. No subtitles yet. To put in the subtitles, once you've actually inserted the video, you can go to the playback tab that appears, and there is an insert captions button. Insert captions, you do need to have a file already created. So let me pause for a second to show you my captions file. Okay. I did use a notepad, so you don't have to use anything super fancy for this. All that matters is that you format it in this specific way. You have timestamps in this format, and you type the text you would like displayed during this specific timestamp. Okay. Then you make sure to save the file as a .vtt file, and then it should be accessible to your insert captions option. So I'm going to close that now and go ahead and actually put that file with my video. Okay. Once I insert the file, you'll see a new button appears on the bottom menu that I used to play the video. It looks like a black square with two white lines at the bottom. This is to turn on the subtitles. So now I can click here and it sees that there are subtitles for English. I can choose to turn them off here if I don't need them, but they're actually already on for me. And now when I play this, I should see them on the actual video.
Hi, my name is Bailey Hucaro. I'm just making a quick video recording, so there is something for me to talk about. You guys get it.
So there you go. Super important to not forget about that when bringing in video files. You want to make sure that everybody is going to be able to get that important information. So with that, I think we're wrapping up our PowerPoint area and we can move into Excel. Did we have any questions about specifically using PowerPoint?
Hey, Bailey, I don't see anything in there. We put a call out for questions a few seconds ago. So if anybody has questions about PowerPoint or anything covered this far, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A panel.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close PowerPoint for now, but if we need to come back, I always can. No need to save that. All right. So let's go ahead and open up Excel now. So as we get into our third program, we'll have a slightly less to talk about now because again, there's just things that go. They're going to be something you want to keep in mind no matter what kind of program you're using. Oh, sorry, I'm pausing because I see that there's a question. Is there a way to automate captioning of videos and presentations? As a screen reader user, it would be difficult to match timestamps to words. That's a great question. So there isn't a way actually inside of PowerPoint itself for it to automatically generate captions, but there is a way there's actually a couple ways. If you are familiar with recording Teams meetings, you can actually download a transcript that you can use for that. Also, if you have a video file and access to Microsoft Stream, which I would double check that you do, but if you have access to the Microsoft Stream app with your license, uploading videos to there allows an option for it to automatically generate a caption file for the video that you can download later. It will take some time for it to generate that, but it is way definitely way easier, and it should do it automatically. Might want to go through to check for any errors though. It's not perfect. Okay. But it will have all the timestamps there for you. So that's what I would recommend. So hopefully that will help. Let me go ahead though and kind of come back to Excel now. I have here my options, just like I did with the previous programs. So I'm going to go ahead and open that to see if there's anything different for Excel. What you'll notice from ease of access, most of these are the same settings we've seen previously. One for accessibility checker, one for feedback options, and one for those screen tip styles. What is available in just Excel is an option to change your display font size. And I think the default's actually 10. I did bump it up myself to 16, personally. I need a little bit more. So that's something that you can have set up. So by default, when you create new workbooks, they're already a bit bigger in the font size. Go ahead and hit OK. So let me open up here some sort of file, just that way we have something on screen. Okay. So this is an example file that I had just saved to my desktop, and we're going to use this to kind of check out some things to keep in mind when using Excel to create accessible content. So let's go ahead and review the things we probably should already know at this point. Obviously, we want to keep out for sufficient contrast between text and background colors. Okay. That'll just make it easier to see the content. You also, with Excel specifically, since you can have multiple sheets in a workbook, it's important to really give some sort of name to those sheets. When you first add a sheet, it'll by default leave it as sheet 1. That's not very informative. For screeners especially, it's important to give context to what are they going to be looking at? What is this page, this sheet for? Okay, so delete. Let's see. Some other things we want to keep in mind are when you are using tables, right? Because obviously in Excel, we use a lot of different tables. You want to include, just like we talked about in Word, a header row, again, for context. Okay. You'll want to also use the banded rows like we have here, the alternating blue and white rows. We also recommend using just the built-in styles that we have. So you don't have to necessarily go in and pick and choose every color, every font. There are themes that can allow you to very quickly change the look to the entire workbook. So for instance, if we go to, there we go, page layout. Here, there are themes, and I can quickly change the look of all my tables and charts at once. Okay. Let's see, a few other things to keep in mind when you are creating charts like this chart I have here. Okay, I created this chart based off of the table right next to it. You do want to keep in mind this is an image as well. It is important to make sure you use chart titles, okay, and also data labels, but you can also add alternate text to the chart as well. So similar to an image in Word, if I right click on this, there is an option to edit alternate text. Okay. And so I actually had already put in some text for this that explains that this is a chart of our overall sales for the first quarter, which I actually typed that incorrectly, but that's what I intended to say. So we have now pretty much wrapped up most of the things that we would consider when working in different Office products for accessibility. So at this point, we're going to be moving into Teams. I want to pause though, because I know there's a chance there might be some questions out there on maybe any of the Office products that I just went through or any of the accessibility options. I'll hold for a second just to see if there are questions.
Bailey, I think you're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So let's close this. And now I'm going to open up a web browser to get to Teams in my demo account. So I'm pulling up here. This is just a web browser. Teams is available as a desktop app, but you can find the settings I'm showing you in either place. So let's go here though. So this is just our regular Microsoft Teams. I'm actually already zoomed in a little bit to make it a bit easier to see. So I can access my general settings for Teams just up here in this top right-hand corner under this 3-dot menu. Okay. And here is settings. There's a few things I want to point out in here. There are settings for turning off the animations if you find those distracting. We also have the talk to text option in the calls area. So if you have a tool to turn on that'll allow you to communicate over phone lines using talk to text, this will allow it to work together with Teams. Okay. Now we also have the ability to search inside of Teams. And I did want to mention that while you can click up here, there is a really handy shortcut for having the cursor jump up there on your keyboard. If you press Control E, it will put the cursor straight into the search bar for you. Okay. Now, also something to keep in mind, you can combine your previous knowledge here. If you have your Windows key H on to bring up Dictate, I can use Dictate inside of Teams. So if I come here in a chat with my good friend Alex, I place my cursor in the message bar and hit Windows key H. Hey, Alex, can you send me an email with the documents we were working on? Because I don't know where they are now. It's written it out for me inside of the text box, and now I can quickly send this his way. So very handy. Let's close the tool though. Okay, there are also other shortcuts we have available inside of Teams. To check them out, they're actually right under this 3-dot menu, keyboard shortcuts. It'll open up a pop-up screen right here. And these are all keyboard shortcuts related specifically to Teams. Okay. It does have links though for you to check out shortcuts for all platforms. And I know that someone actually mentioned they were kind of interested in that. So that's one way you can get to it. I also have a link just to our General Office Accessibility Center. So if you wanted to check out all the resources we have there, here's a quick link. We'll go ahead and close this. And now I do also want to point out in your settings, I kind of think I skipped over it, but there is actually specific to Teams high contrast option. So if you wanted just high contrast on just Teams instead of your whole device, you could actually have that with this option. Okay. Now, I am going to show you a couple of features that you can have when you're inside of a Teams meeting for accessibility. So that does mean that I'll have to enter in some kind of call. So let me go to my calendar and join a Teams meeting right here. Now on the join screen, here is where you can quickly check your camera and microphone and what device is connected to receive that information. We'll go ahead and join the actual call. And then in here, I'm just going to show us a few things to keep in mind. So the first thing is if you do utilize your webcam, turn mine on. Hey. So here you have options to change how it displays you with either like a blurred background, or you can also change out the background to an image if you prefer. Now, in my web app, it does look like it is preventing me from changing my options for my camera. And so I don't have the ability to show you on screen, but it would be available right under the camera option to either change background settings or turn on blur, one of those two options. Okay. We also have the option to turn off incoming video. So if your device is struggling to display things, or maybe the quality is not working or doesn't seem to be very good, turning off incoming video can immediately make your computer have a better audio experience. And it doesn't affect anybody else in the call. This is just your view that would be affected. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and double check my notes here. Now, there are also a few other things that I want to point out, but they're actually going to involve me pulling over. I want to show you guys the turn on live captions option, which in the web app doesn't look like it's allowing me, but I do see I have it here in my other window. So this is my meeting window for our event. If you're in the Teams desktop app, normally the window toolbar would look up here at the top. Then there's a 3-dot menu. And here you'll see options for things like turn on live captions. So when you're in a Teams meeting, absolutely check out that 3-dot menu. It's unfortunate it wasn't in my web version, but in the desktop app, there is absolutely turn on live captions to automatically generate subtitles for anybody speaking in the meeting. Okay. Now I think we're about ready to start wrapping up. Were there any other? Oh, I see there's a question. Do these accessibility features you explained work with a screen reader, such as JAWS? That's a great question. So I am under the impression that they should work with JAWS. However, the good news is if you do use JAWS, we actually do have an accessibility answer desk that I'm going to tell you about here in a bit that has free support with Microsoft employees who are familiar with our products and with common assistive technology and how to troubleshoot with those. So I do have a link for that though. And so as far as I know though, JAWS I definitely think should be supported. Okay. Now, were there any other questions? Because we're starting to wrap up now. And I'm going to leave us with some important links you guys can visit after the presentation.
I think we're good, Bailey. I don't see any other questions in there. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to go back to my presentation and review what we covered today. So we went over our Getting Started with Windows section to learn about ease of access settings in the Windows 10 operating system. We went over how to create accessible content in our Microsoft 365 programs, and we learned how we can work together in teams with ease of access as well. So I do have just a little bit of closing information. So I already kind of started talking about this, but the Microsoft Enterprise Disability Answer Desk, it does offer technical support for all accessibility related tools and questions. We operate in multiple regions with support for English, Spanish, French, and American Sign Language. Our ASL team is staffed by technical experts who are fluent in ASL and use video phones to connect with customers when desired. All of our agents receive specialized training for how customers who use assistive technologies interact with Windows and Office. Our Disability Answer Desk Our Disability Answer Desk experts are trained to help people both with built-in accessibility features and commonly used assistive technologies. So I encourage you to keep us in mind if you're ever in need of assistance. And also, this is free technical support as well. So I have some links on screen that you can use to quickly go to the answer desk I was just mentioning. Okay, I also have some links to other resources. Now, these are in my actual PowerPoint. So they are links that should be available to you after the session. But if you do have any issues finding these, just let one of our organizers know and we'll make sure to get them to you. And then to end, I just have one last ask, which is to thank you so much for coming to this session. And if you have time, I would love if you could fill out a short survey letting me know what you thought about the session, give us some feedback. It's only 6 questions. The first 3 questions will be asking you to rate the speaker 1 to 10 on how they did. 9s and 10s means I did a great job. 8 and below means there's still something I need to work on. That's okay. In questions 4 through 6, just let me know where you can type in detailed feedback, what I can do to make sure I get a 9 or 10 next time. So that's how I get credit for my trainings. So with that, I think I'm all done.
Thank you again to our presenters, and thanks to everyone for attending. We hope you enjoyed this session. If you have additional questions or would like to request slides or presentation materials, please email disabilityinclusion@odi@das.ohio.gov. Thank you again for supporting Ohio's commitment to disability inclusion, and enjoy the rest of your day.